those of you who might need a refresher on it, for those who don't know it, just do a thumbnail overview of police brutality in the city and in the country. You'll often hear that the city of Dallas has the most transparent police department in the country, and the department congratulates itself on that. And I'll show you some examples of how transparency isn't transparent. But we've got a 40-year history at least of unaccountable police killings in Dallas. Most people have heard of the shooting in 1973 of a little boy named Santos Rodriguez. 12-year-old boy was handcuffed in a police car, and the officer, whose name was Daryl Kane, was playing Russian roulette with him to get him to admit to vandalizing a vending machine, and ended up shooting him, fatally shooting him in the head. And Officer Kane was indicted, and he was convicted, and he got a sentence of 5 years, of which he served less than 2. And that was the last indictment in a fatal shooting in the city of Dallas. We haven't had, although we've had hundreds of shootings since then, we have not had one indictment in a fatal police shooting since that time. Now, most people don't know that Daryl Kane had actually, just a few months before, killed a black kid named Michael Moorhead. And he had gotten in no trouble for that. He was just like they do today. Took a few days off and then came back on, and the shooting was completely justified. So he actually had killed 2 people before he ever had to be accountable for it. Nationally, you see the same thing. In spite of all the progress in this country, and you've got to admit, there has been progress over the past 40 years, but in spite of all the progress, either in the business world, academia, or in government, this is one area of public policy and public life that doesn't seem to get much better. I've got looking at, in the 70s, Griffin Bell was the Attorney General for Jimmy Carter. And Griffin Bell would have been the one that between 1977 and 1978 would have had the responsibility to bring a civil rights charge against Officer Daryl Kane. And the Rodriguez family begged him to do that, and he declined to do it. In the same way that there's no civil rights violation in the Michael Brown killing, and I'll be shocked if there's one in any other killing this year. But anyway, Griffin Bell, in 1979, he said that we were looking at police brutality, and we were looking at some things we could do, like maybe get an injunction against the whole city. And so the idea of the department entering into an agreement with the city to change their policies was something that Griffin Bell originally had worked on. Attorney General Ed Meese in the 80s didn't say much about police brutality, but the Attorney General for President Clinton, Janet Reno, did say in 1999 that she was vowed to scrutinize police brutality much more than anyone had in the past, although she did not bring any civil rights charges in any case. And pretty much the same with today. You do have an active Justice Department with active agreed orders with many police departments around the country, a handful at least, but you don't have in court, often the AG weighs in on the side of the whatever particular law enforcement agency is being taken to court. So you have some things that change, but in this particular encounter between a law enforcement officer and let's say a youth in the inner city, black or Latino youth in the inner city, and a white officer, let's say a nervous, angry, scared white officer and an alienated black or Latino youth. This encounter is still fraught with peril, both for the two parties there, and then there's always always a third seat at the table in a police killing, and that's the public. Sometimes people say, well, y'all are so mad about these police killings, why don't you work on black crime? And actually, it's true that some of the same activists work on both issues. But it's kind of like saying, you know, we're trying to find a cure for cancer, and then someone says, well, hey, diabetes is a good disease. Why aren't y'all working on diabetes? You know? But there's another reason, and that is that if I get, if Ms. Bradford and I are playing poker over at her house, and I get mad at her and shoot her, I'm likely to be taken to jail. I'm likely to be put in jail. I'm likely to go before a magistrate and be arraigned and try to set some bail. And I'm not likely to get out on bail. And I'm likely to go to jail. But if a policeman came in and we were having a scuffle and he shot me or shot Mrs. Bradford, none of those things are likely to happen to him. And then the other thing is that when the policeman shoots somebody, who authorizes him to do it anyway?
Power and privilege.
Power and privilege, well, yes, but also the public. I mean, the reason he has an authorization to badge and a gun is because the public wants him out there doing public safety if need be. So the mayor, the city council, the city manager, all the voters, and of course power and privilege, authorize this police officer to use deadly force. And that's why a police killing is different than a regular killing. It's different in the way you prevent it, it's different in what actually happens, and it's different in the investigation and the accountability of it. I'll just give you one example. We were following a case this last summer, a man named Juan May and an Arlington police officer, I can't call his name right now, but they were both on a party bus. They had a mutual friend. And at the end of the night, Juan May and the officer got into a fight. And by all accounts, the officer lost that fight. And so when the party bus got back to Papa Do's in the parking lot, he leaves the party bus, he goes to his car, out of his trunk, he gets his police revolver, and he comes back and he kills Juan May. He's not on duty, he's not protecting anybody, it's not even a crime of passion. When you leave and go to your car, this is premeditation, right? All right, so when the DeSoto cops pulled up, did they cuff him? Did they take him to jail? Did they arraign him that night? No, he explained he was a police officer from Arlington. They sent him home with his gun, and he showed up to work Monday morning. And it was Colette Flanagan and Jindia Blount, who was Juan May's sister, who got this man's gun taken away from him and got him taken off patrol by meeting with the chief of police in Arlington. Well, what I'm saying is, in no part of a homicide, of a police homicide, is the policeman treated like a regular murderer, you know? And I just wanted to make sure you understood that. And of course, most people here do, and most of the candidates that came tonight, I'm sure, have a good experience with this and progress with it. Let me say that in the 1980s, like in 1983, we had 26 police shootings that year, 13 of them fatal. Last year we had, I think it was 15 shootings. And how many fatal? About half usually are fatal. Some unarmed and some mentally ill. But by the mid-1980s, I just bring up this history to let you know that it's not like everything was hunky-dory and just recently things went bad. By the mid-1980s, Dallas had more police shootings per capita than any city in the country. And we had it for 2 years running in 1986 and 1987. And this was when we had two newspapers. This was a study by the Dallas Times-Herald. Some of the old timers will remember them. But we were actually had more police shootings and more fatal police shootings than any other city in the country at that time. I bring that up just because we have there's just a long history of this, of unaccountable police shootings. And remember all these years where 26, 30 people are shot and 15 of them are fatal. Throughout all these years, throughout your entire adult life, unless you're a lot older than I am, there has been no indictments. The only time you see an indictment, a headline occasionally will say Dallas cop indicted for shooting a black man, and it'll turn out to be a Grand Prairie cop, but not a City of Dallas cop. Now you'll hear the chief say, well, we had 2 people indicted for police shootings. And it's true, but these were not fatal shootings. And in one of them there was a videotape that showed that the officer had lied. And in the other one there was a witness plus the man lived, Kelvin Walker. So it was a little harder to just ignore and say everything was great, you know, totally justified. But we've had some bizarre shootings. Some of y'all remember in the late 1980s, an elderly woman named Etta Collins. She lived over on Hamilton in South Dallas. She called the police because she thought someone was breaking into her house. She met them behind her screen door and they shot her and killed her. Anybody remember the senior citizen place on Parker Road over there? The guy that ran the crime watch there was a man named Albert Horton. He's 80 years old. He's on crime watch duty in the parking lot of the senior citizen home where he's lived for years. And he had called the police, and the police came and shot him. And of course, no indictments. Nothing happens to any of the officers. And on we go. There were some, one of the things that we wanted to do in Mothers Against Police Brutality was to turn a national spotlight on Dallas, which is a little harder to do than you might think. But we were following a couple of cases last summer that we thought would do it. And one of them was the case of Jason Harrison, a mentally ill 38-year-old African-American man with a history of mental illness. And his brother is here today. Tonight, Sean is here. I told Sean I was going to show this film because about 9 months after the shooting, the police department finally had to release the video. And it was the first police shooting in Dallas where the cops were wearing body cameras. Now, I'm just going to walk you briefly through what we were doing with this case because it's interesting to see how it comes out. The police spokesman the first day after Jason was shot said it was a very, very, very brief encounter. And we took that to mean, okay, a minute or 2, you know. And it said that Jason had lunged at the policeman and they feared for their lives because he had a screwdriver and they had to shoot him. And the 2 officers, John Rogers and Andrew Hutchins, right, were back on duty before the autopsy had even been released. And we got, Mothers Against Police Brutality got this autopsy and released it, and that was the first time we knew, outside of the family, Sean knew, but that was the first time we knew that Jason Harrison had been shot 5 times and twice in the back. And so we began to say, wow, this man's mother calls for help, and they come, and we were saying within 2 minutes, he's dead, you know. And the police department said, well, the videotape shows that the officer's version of the story is correct, that they feared for their lives and they were justified in shooting him. And the officers were back on patrol. And so we kept saying, well, why don't you release the videotape? You know, the transparent police department. And, you know, police departments, like even in Albuquerque, which is a really bad police department, they released the videotapes they had when they shot that homeless guy. And it didn't hurt them when they were prosecuting. So we said, well, we'll release the tape. And they said, no, the tape does support the officer's version, but we cannot release it. And some of you may remember a rule called the 72-hour rule.
Yes.
And this was a rule that came about when, I forgot his name, but there was a mentally ill guy, Bobby Bennett, and he had a knife. He was about, 20 feet away from the police officer, and the police officer shot him and wounded him. And then they charged Bobby Bennett with assaulting a police officer because the officer said he'd been assaulted. And it just so happened that a neighbor had a film of the whole thing. And so the officer, the mentally ill guy standing here like this, probably scared to death, the officer walks out 20 feet away and just shoots him. And so when this videotape came out, Bennett is in the hospital with 2 officers at his door because he's going to go to jail as soon as he's able to for assaulting a police officer. And so at that point, Chief Brown decided that the officers were so traumatized by these shootings that they needed 72 hours to think this over. It wasn't fair for them to have to make a statement. traumatized if they'd done it or seen it. And that within the 72 hours, it was only fair to let them see the videotape, if any existed, and hear the testimony of anybody else. All right, so that was all in place by the time Jason Harrison was shot last summer on June the 14th. And so the officers had 72 hours, and so, of course, we were saying, well, of course, their story agrees with the videotape because they got to watch the videotape, you know. But as you'll see, even with the 72 hours, and even with the videotape, the two officers came up with conflicting versions of what happened.
Keep on!